Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Kalfa. Let's talk about some wolves. On this episode of the podcast, I have with me from Ascending Edge Creative Evaluation, Piper Grandjean Targos, who's here with me in the Wolf Connection studio office. And via Zoom, I have Devin Larsen. Thank you guys for joining me. We're going to have a different configuration here with Devin on Zoom and Piper in studio, but I think we can handle it. So thank you guys for making time and coming up to the ranch.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for the invitation.
I love every chance I have to work with Wolf Connection. So thanks for having us.
No problem. So I want to get started with, you guys have done two different studies. And for those of you out here, so these are two recognized studies that really talk about the impacts of Wolf Connection's youth programs and how they affect the youth, typically preteens to teenagers, roughly in the 13 to 18 range, that come and join our 8-week programs. They come and hang out with the wolves. They do a lot of work on themselves. And so what Piper and Devin have done over the past, how long has this study been going on, Piper? Has the continuous study been happening?
So we did the original study in 2017, and that the data that we collected there has been continuing to be collected up until now, so about 3 years. About 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a multi-year study that's been happening. So in the first, and these studies, as we were talking before we started the podcast, Devin and Piper were saying, so these two studies are really kind of coincide and weave together, because the first study that was done really just sort of carried over into the second and explaining how things are going. So if you don't mind, so I'll start with you, Piper, and then Devin, I'll go to you. So in the first study, what was the main goal of the first study that kicked this whole thing off in 2017?
That's a great question. So as evaluators, what we really want to do, the goal of evaluation is to really help the program. And so that's our ultimate goal, is to really find information that can be used to improve the program in a certain way. And so we do that through a collaborative effort. We work with Wolf Connection. What we did is we interviewed and had, just conversations with various Wolf Connection staff, Teo and Renee and Julia, who was head of programs at that time, and other volunteers, to really get a sense of what is going to be useful to the program. What burning questions do you have? And then, of course, everybody's got 20 different ones that they really want to know. And so then, we need to wean that down into, well, if you had those questions answered, what would you do with that information to really make a bigger impact on the youth, or to really reach more people? And so we kind of discovered 2 or 3 real basic questions about what we thought Wolf Connection needed, and Wolf Connection staff agreed, right? I said it was a collaborative effort, so we all just kind of coalesced on a couple of different questions, and we decided, okay, these are the ones that are really going to be useful for Wolf Connection.
Awesome. So Devin, when you guys are putting this study together, and I didn't say this, and I apologize for not asking. So what are your and Piper's backgrounds that led you to come to Wolf Connection and want to start this study, Devin?
Good question. So Piper and I studied program evaluation at Claremont Graduate University. What that means is we are really studying programs and how they work in an applied setting. And this means we get to work with the individuals on the ground that are trying to make real world difference in the lives of individuals. So Wolf Connection is, as I'm sure anybody who's listening to this knows, an incredibly unique program that is attempting to make some really powerful changes in the lives of anyone who visits. And for the part we were looking at, many youth in schools around the area. And so, because we study programs and what they look at, and because this program is so exciting and unique and fascinating, we drew those two together and came to Wolf Connection to find out what's going on here, what is it achieving, and how is it being done.
So and that's, Piper, back to you. So when you guys initially come here, and I'm sure there are other studies that have been done, equine therapy with horses, dog therapy. This is, in a way, a non-traditional program in really with the way the animal that's being used. Mm-hmm. We've discussed much about the history of wolves in this country in the wild here in Wolf Connection, and sort of the push-pull of the gravitation towards the wolf as an animal as it is. So what drew you and Devin to come here and really want to make the difference here?
Right. So our initial connection with Wolf Connection was I was in a course Claremont Graduate University has a course as part of our studies, has a course where we take our learned knowledge and we apply it to different organizations in the real world. And so what we do is we try and find a client, if we don't already have one, to do an evaluation with. And in that course, one of the students that I was paired up with found Wolf Connection through his love of wolves, and reached out and thought that it might be a really good experience for us. And I love animals, and this was a great fit for me personally. But then also we had to kind of explain to Wolf Connection, hey, this is what evaluation is, and here's how we think we can help you, and kind of sell ourselves. And I think we did an okay job at selling ourselves, because here we are. But yeah, the original purpose for coming here was kind of a mutual benefit of please help us by allowing us to come in and do part of our training here in the real world with you all.
No, and the study is phenomenal, and it has great findings, and we're going to get into this. So, Devin, when you guys started the initial first study, or Piper, whoever can speak to this best, when you start that study, so when you get in, what are the three main points that you were trying to hit with that initial first study? Like you said, the goals that you were explaining before. So I'll go to Piper, and then Devin, I'll toss to you as well.
Yeah. So initially, we realized that Wolf Connection didn't have kind of a really honed kind of externally facing or funder facing document that explained what it was that Wolf Connection does and why it does, why it is so powerful. And so one of our initial goals was to really create something called a program theory, which is really just explaining what it does that the program is trying to achieve and how it gets there, how it gets from A to Z, essentially, with the students, with the people who come to the program. So that was goal number one. And then we used that document to really hone the questions of one was, what activities do the students really get out of the program? What do they really engage with? Which are ones that really teach them something or they come away with, and which ones are kind of their flops. And then the other aspects were, what are the overall outcomes? What do they take away? What's kind of a psychological, tangible outcome that we say, oh, like there's studies that point to this being a useful tool, and Wolf Connection gives it to these students.
That's awesome. So Devin, if you can, off of what Piper just said, what were some of the things that you saw in that first study that, some of the tangible things that you could see that the students were taking away when you were studying them in that first go around?
Absolutely. Well, first I want to say that first study is ongoing. So it's the first, second, and at this point, last study, right? And we'll continue gathering information. But we found Wolf Connection was trying to build, we found out early on, this ability to self-reflect and gain insight into their lives. So it asked students to really critically assess who they are, what they're doing, how they're reacting, all of this. And we found that we've seen changes there. There's been improvement. There was also, Wolf Connection was trying to help students build connection to nature, connection to others. And so we looked into that and found some improvement there as well. And finally, we were able to find that students, there's a scale called the Personal Growth Initiative Scale, which in essence looks at students' ability to keep on learning, keep on growing, achieve their goals on into the future. And so we studied this. We looked to see if students were growing in their ability to take control of their own learning on the future. And we found improvement there as well. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the students, many of the students that have come through the program. When I was talking with Amanda, who's a director of programs, that a lot of the kids that either took part in the study or were just in general in the program, they would have that next leap of they weren't going back to the expulsionary school they were in. They would either graduate from there, find a job, they would go back into regular public school and graduate from public school and move on. So there was some tangible result that you guys were finding in these things. And I bookmarked a couple of quotes that you guys have there that I think speak to some of what Devin was saying. I never would have thought talking to strangers can be this helpful. Mm-hmm. And so I would play off of these kids getting out of their comfort zone and doing the physical activity as well as sort of the social activity, right, Piper, in a way?
Right. Well, so the second study that you're pointing to, in what Devin was saying, it mirrors the findings of the first study in a way that we didn't expect it to, in that those three areas, those three program goals that we really identified as like, oh, we think Wolf Connection's doing this. Does this sound right to you? And Wolf Connection staff came back and said, yeah, actually, that sounds good. We're trying to focus on one, how are the students growing and developing on their own? Two, how are they connecting with others? And three, how are they connecting and experiencing the world around them? And then we did the second study, and it was really looking at these like rich lived experiences of the students. And it kind of bubbled up from the data that we collected from talking to all these students, that those are the three areas that really stuck out with them, that they were really better connected with themselves and being inwardly focused and really knowing what it is that they feel and how they feel it, and then that's okay, and using the Wolf principles to communicate that oftentimes, and then also connecting with others. So the quotation that you mentioned about connecting with strangers, not only how warm and engaging the Wolf Connection staff is and how wonderful they are, but talking to other students, and they talked about how they were so closed off and now they can connect with everybody. And yeah,
it's amazing how that's just such a simple, it seems for some that it may be a simple action just to talk to a person that you're not aware of. And a lot of these kids go to these schools and they're not all friends. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty unique to have a different set of students coming from all different backgrounds through 8 weeks, sort of maybe not fully get along, but start to understand each other. They have a lot in common. Yeah. And that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. And that's reminded me of a quotation. I was kind of reviewing the reports right before our talk today. And one of them was saying, oh, we used to call ourselves squad, like we're squad. And now it's everybody who's come to Wolf Connection, like everybody who we've done this program with. And now we're the pack. Now we pack now. We're just like, oh, okay. Like, it's really, it is really connecting to them.
Yeah. It's awesome how that changes around. Devin, to you, was there anything that stood out or that stood out to you throughout these studies? And I know we're kind of going back and forth, but as you guys said, it's really, they weave together so nicely. What were some of the things that you saw when you were speaking to the students? How did you approach that aspect of it? Because I find if you're doing a study and, even to try and talk to adults, I feel like sometimes is tough. If you're trying to do a study on whatever product or a movie or whatever it may be, but to go into this sort of a study of looking inward and finding out how these things are changing for you. How were you able to connect with students that came here in a way that they were comfortable expressing those thoughts and feelings?
Absolutely. John, I think there's a couple different pieces to the question you asked. The first is how were we able to connect, right? And I think that, that comes down to, were the students able to really open up with us when we were talking to them? And the answer is yes, we were able to connect with them because they were able to open up to us incredibly well. And I think there's 3 reasons for that. First off is Wolf Connection. Those of you that work at Wolf Connection, the staff, are incredibly good at building that connection with the students, helping them to open up and be vulnerable in a way that we just generally are not in most of our lives. Second, there's an abundance of research that has shown that when we build a close connection with animals, it actually releases physical chemicals in our brain that help us be more trusting with others and help us build a connection with others that we wouldn't have. And third, Piper and I and others that did research with us, when we were out with the kids at Wolf Connection, we would hike with them. We would sit and share with them our own experiences. We tried to be vulnerable with them so that it was not odd for them to be vulnerable back with us. So yes, that's kind of the first part of, I believe, the question you asked. The second one, was there something that jumped out at me? And for this, I want to dig a little bit deeper into that second study. Because the first study, though fascinating, and it provided a strong set of evidence that showed the Wolf Connection was doing what it was supposed to be doing. That second study really dug into the personal lived experiences of these students, and just some of the things that they said have stayed with me since. So, for instance, students talked about the fact that they discovered that through challenges, they could grow both physically and emotionally, right? And that is a powerful finding that we all need to learn in life. And so not only were they able to experience those challenges and experience the growth that came from it, but they recognized that, which was huge. The second one, you talked about being able to connect with others. And what was the quote? I never knew that speaking to strangers could be this powerful. But in addition to that, there were students that said things like, I made the first friend I've ever had in my life here at Wolf Connection. Or because I learned to connect with students at Wolf Connection, I was able to go home and connect with my family in a way that I was never able to do before. Right? And that's incredibly powerful. And then finally, there was just many students that spoke about how there was something different at Wolf Connection that they had never experienced. About how when they got to the ranch, they were able to leave their stress and their anxiety behind. And that is a type of therapy that we all need, especially in the stressful world we're experiencing right now. Did that answer your question?
I think that covers a good portion of it. Yeah, I find that when what you said just before about being vulnerable, and that's such a for most of us, that's a tough place to get to, is to be vulnerable with how we're actually feeling, how we're actually dealing with the stresses of life, dealing with family situations, dealing with school, dealing with jobs, whatever it may be, and to be vulnerable in that way for both of you to put yourselves in that vulnerable position with students that don't really know you, just by name or, doing a study like that. Mm-hmm. Is such a powerful way to be. And I appreciate the kind words that you said before. It's to be vulnerable is such a huge part of what we do here. And it's to understand that we're all human and we all come from something, and that we all can help each other do better in that way. And that's a lot of what we try to do. And the Wolves are a great teacher in that. I mean, they're the ones that do a lot of the work. We just sort of stand by. But with that, Piper, so as Devin's saying, you had to be vulnerable. So was there anything were there any quotes that stuck out to you as you're going through this study? Were there any experiences? Let's take the physical challenges, because these kids we do a lot of hiking, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of emotions that come out of there. So what were some of the things? I was reading in the second study, there was a kid that said, well, I could do with less hiking. And that's fair. I mean, some people don't like the physical aspect of it, but what did you find was the positive that came out of the physical work that was done, the hiking and then the bonding with the wolves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're always going to see people who, there's a spectrum for everything. So some people loved the hikes and they were like, this wasn't hard at all. And some people hated them and they really wish that they could just not do it. Most people felt those are really hard. but they were really worth it in the end. And honestly, I think there's more to be discovered in terms of studies about what it is about the hikes that really bring out this sense of trust and openness and just kind of like connection to the natural world, be it other people who you're hiking with, or the wolves who are, in front and in back, or whatever, or just, the leaves on the trees when you do the quiet hikes and you're just kind of like listening to crunches and breathing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there to dig into, but most of the kids in this 8-week program really felt that it was those physical challenges of the hike. Sometimes they were building a bridge, or setting up the teepee. And it was, not only was it was the challenge, and I overcame it. And that shows me that I can overcome things that I didn't think that I could normally, or I can do it now and I couldn't do it 8 weeks ago. But I also think that there's something about reconnecting with yourself and being quiet and kind of like turning inward that is powerful as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing that the outward expression of the physical activity helps on the inside. I think for myself, I know when I go to the gym, there's a lot of that. There's that outward expression, but it helps regulate me sometimes when I go to the gym and I'm slamming weights, and for some reason it's just a release. Mm-hmm. And I can see it, I've seen it before with some students that you can tell they're sort of tense, they're a little nervous before we go on, even if we go on the big hike at the end, which is, it's all day. For those of you that, the end of the 8-week program, there's a large hike that happens, mm-hmm. and it's an all day hike. And to see the accomplishment, and like you said, just the outward expression then that comes from inside of getting to the top of the mountain, doing something where they probably couldn't have done it 8 weeks ago, or maybe the switch turned in week 7 or week 6. Mm-hmm. And it's giving them the time and the space for that to happen. Did either of you, Piper, I'll start with you and then I'll go to Devin. Did either of you find, was that an aspect of the study that came out in terms of sort of allowing the kids their own time to sort of find what they were looking for or establish themselves, at Wolf Connection a little bit, and not be pushed to do something they didn't want to do?
Certainly. I mean, I think that once again, the staff and Amanda specifically is running the programs, and there's other staff, of course, that do program lead on a given day or a given week. But they're just so great at not only tuning into what the students might need, but also just allowing the students to kind of take it at their own pace. And I know that Wolf Connections, one of your phrases is sacred timing, right? Where right. it's and giving students, I think often students, especially students that come from the backgrounds that a lot of these kids come from, don't have that benefit, especially from adults, to just, I need to do this. I need to listen to what my body is saying. I can do this and I can't do this. And this is how it, but then at the same time, you're also getting that challenge. You're also saying, I see in you, right? Like Amanda is saying to the students, like, I see in you that you can do this. I'm hearing that you don't want to do this necessarily, but I encourage you to challenge yourself, and I invite you to challenge yourself. And then it's the student's own choice whether or not they take up that challenge. And I think that is such a powerful aspect of it, that they're not being told that they have to hike this mountain. They are being invited to hike it, and they don't think that they can. And they like part of the growth is taking that first step on their own. And then the rest of the growth is looking back and going, oh, wow, like I didn't think I could. And here I am. And taking that lesson and applying it to other aspects of their life.
Yeah. And Devin, with Piper was talking about nature and how, and just what you said was great, Piper, because it's the invitation of really initially signing that release to come to the program, right? And so when they get here, what did you find that nature and that invitation aspect of it really, what did you discover with the kids when they were talking to you about their experiences? And how did nature and the invitation, instead of being told what to do, the invitation of saying, we're going to invite you to do this activity, how did that resonate with them when you guys were doing the study? Or when the study's continuing? I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, no worries. There was a lot there. So first off, you talked about not asking the kids to do anything they didn't want to do. But let's be honest, some of these kids did not want to hike. They did not want to share the deepest parts of their mind, right? But they did it anyways. And I think nature was a big part of that. One of the reasons I got so excited about Wolf Connection is because I've been looking into wilderness therapy beforehand, how that works. And one of the things that has been found over and over again is that as people go out into nature and they connect to the wild, right, their anxiety and their fear and their depression diminishes, which makes doing challenging things easier, right? And so you ask them to challenge themselves. They were put in a place where challenging themselves was not as difficult for them. They saw the examples of the wolves who had overcome incredible challenges. And they decided, okay, I'm going to try this. And then on top of that, after all of that was done, you ask them to reflect on it and think about it and come up with some internal understanding of it. And because of that, they were able to learn from it in a way that they might not have in another place. Mm-hmm. And over again, the students told us, there's something different here. We felt something new here. We had experiences here we've never had anywhere else, and we've come out better because of it.
Is it, Piper, is it as simple? And I open to the page, and this quote hits me every time. It is magic coming out here. Mm-hmm. Is it, for both of your professional opinions, could it be just coming to a new environment? Is some of it as simple as that? Is that part of how this study, you were able to find that in this study, that just the new environment change can be that different and that life-changing?
I mean, sure, that's a great point. I mean, we didn't study that specifically. I think there's a lot to it. As evaluators, we hate saying the word magic.
No, and
that's the opposite of what we're trying to find. But
I just flipped everything on its head.
It's so valid to hear that from the students. And I think what makes it magical, if I can use that word, and please don't take away my evaluator card, is that it's a combination of so many different factors that are all put together. And I think being challenged and being in a brand new place is very one tangible factor. And does that have to be at Wolf Connection Ranch? No, that could be, in the forest, San Bernardino National Forest, right? Like it doesn't necessarily, or just a museum, right? Like those are still new places, but you still have all of these other factors of how deeply connected the staff are and engaged they are, and the programming that's here. I mean, it's just everything coming together is what makes it magical.
So if you were to, as evaluators, if you were to boil it down to, not even boil it down, what are the factors? What are the that's the only word I could think of right now, that would boil it down to someone coming to that conclusion as a student, telling you, both of you, about the magic. Mm-hmm. So, and again, so like I said, from an evaluator and professional standpoint, what are those factors that would bring them to that conclusion that you guys were finding out?
Oh God, you're asking the hard questions. I'm gonna answer a little bit, but I think Devin needs to get a shot.
Sure, yeah. No, I'm gonna give Devin a shot. Absolutely, yeah.
But I would say probably one very tangible factor is just the exceptional staff and the way, and not just the fact that people are here and they're well trained and they interact well, but it's a culture, it's a feeling when these, and the students would describe it. There's a cute little drawing of a bus somewhere of the students feeling like they physically started to feel the change on the bus ride here, that they felt like after a couple of times they realized, oh, this is a unique place and I can let myself go and I can talk to other people and I can talk to the staff, and the staff care about me and they don't boss me, they just challenge me. And those are two very different things. And I think one of the quote unquote magical components of it is just feeling welcomed in kind of every sense of the word, that they're not just, oh, great, you're here, right? It's like,
right,
be here, right? Like bring yourself, bring who you are, 100% of who you are, and expose it. We love you and we want to support you no matter what that looks like, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Devin, if you can play off of that, a couple of other things, because Piper wants to toss to you on that.
No worries. There's a lot going on here. I talked about earlier that there's a literal physical change in your brain chemistry when you come in contact with nature, with animals. That's a piece of it. You have an incredible place here with the wolves, with the ranch. That's definitely a piece of it. It's clearly not everything. Piper mentioned the people, the staff, so I won't get into that any further than I already did. But also, have you ever moved somewhere new and had the opportunity to reinvent yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you from originally being from New York and moving from New York to here and being at this place at Wolf Connection for 4 years already now, there's a constant reinvention now. And are there still parts of myself where I can be stuck in my old ways? Absolutely. But I've never been challenged with my comfort level or on a professional level even, or in a personal level, as much as I've been challenged here. So yeah, I think the reinvention was one, the move, and to really make that decision to say, yeah, we're going to move, we're going to do it. And just to do it because everything aligned and it worked out great. But then also to take it another step further and be involved in a place like this. So yes, the short answer is yes, I have, yeah.
Perfect. When the students come to Wolf Connection, just like when you came to, the Los Angeles area, I guess you're further out from Los Angeles, to California from New York, they were given the opportunity to take a moment and reinvent themselves. The experiences they have at school and with their families, they don't exist up here. Now, they don't have to reinvent themselves, just like you didn't have to change at all when you came from New York. But they were given the opportunity. Wolf Connection, in many ways, works as a facilitator for change. And then they're asked to consciously make a choice. And I think that first, the facilitation, and then the explicit request to make a choice about who they are and what they're going to do, I think that is so powerful. Yeah,
because I noticed that too, working with programs for a few years and with Amanda. And what I've noticed, it's weird. I'll pick up little physical nuances with some of the students. I'll notice maybe there's a girl she has her hair, she wears glasses and she has her hair wrapped up in a bun, and it's sort of closed and reserved. And then in week 3, contacts are in, hair's down, more open, smiling a little bit more. And that's just within the first 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it's when you're in it, when you're in the teeth of it, of working a program and working with these students, and it's those little changes, those little things that you see. We took one of the big hikes. There was one of the young boys was hiking up, and he was probably 17 or so. And, for the most part, same deal. Glasses, a little bit shy, somewhat closed off. The final hike, he brought a camera. He was snapping photos of trees and leaves, and he butterflies and all these different things. We found out he wanted to be a photographer. And it's, again, I think going back to the sacred timing piece, it's seeing that, again, promoting the fact that we don't need to see these profound changes right away, if even at the end of the 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. But if the journey is continuing with you even after you leave here, we hope that we've done enough to help you with that, so that you can recognize those things. And, I don't know if that's, Piper's just smiling over here. I mean, I would think that some of what you guys found towards the end, what were the, when you got to the end of it, when you got to the end of the program, what were those some of the things they were saying? I guess that they were allowed to, like you said, they were allowed to be themselves.
Yeah.
What were some of those things towards the end that you were recognizing and seeing?
Yeah. So, I mean, we, through interviews and through focus groups with the students, they really, not only did they say, oh, we want to take this piece of Wolf Connection. So they mentioned the maze labyrinth. They're like, we want to build that here at the school. And
right.
They, some of them were meditating at home. Some of them were saying they stay off the streets more, that they're trying to find nature trails around their house, and that sometimes they're sitting and just kind of reflecting and thinking on the nature sounds that they do have access to, in their homes, repeating Wolf Connection principles and taking that with them. So, I mean, there's lots of little pieces of evidence that say, like, oh, these students are really connecting, and each one takes something different, but they're really connecting with aspects of the program that they needed at that time, right?
Right.
And building that into their lives. And that's the key toward long-term change, is not just, 8 weeks, is that really going to change somebody's life? Well,
right.
If it's sticky, if it stays with you. And what we're trying to do now, and what we've been asked to do is create another study, another evaluation that looks at longitudinal effects of some of the same things that we found in the first couple of studies, and are those continuing on throughout? And do they change into other things? Are they being more resilient to stressors and other aspects in their life that inevitably are going to come up that Wolf Connection couldn't address because they hadn't happened yet, or
right.
because they're so deep in their lives that it's just an 8-week program and it just can't quite reach some of those, really, really deep traumas.
Yeah. Devin, did you see, what were the things that Piper mentioned, the maze labyrinths? Did you notice anything, or did you hear anything from any of the students that they were telling you that they were going to take with them, or some practices they were going to take with them once the program was over?
Absolutely. Well, I think the one I heard more than anything else is the ability to connect with other people. I think I said this earlier. One girl said that she made the first friend she felt like she'd ever had while she was in this program. And another individual talked about how they'd always been close with their siblings, but they'd never been able to connect with their parents. And this gave them the ability to communicate with them and dig down in a way that they never had before. And that was huge. But in addition, there's one kid that I will always remember. I sat right outside the lodge that I believe you're currently sitting in. And he told me that all of his friends were doing drugs and skipping class and missing out on so much in life. And he had made the conscious effort to go to Wolf Connection because he wanted to break away from that cycle. And he told me that during the 8 weeks of Wolf Connection, he had stopped a whole series of bad habits, including substance abuse and poor behavior at school and so forth. And he was doing it consciously to begin a path towards something greater after Wolf Connection. And this isn't included in the report, but it's stayed with me ever since. And I think that every individual that went to Wolf Connection changed in a different way, whether it was building a connection with somebody important in their life, whether it was dropping a habit, realizing how bad it was and dropping a habit that they should have done, or just gaining the motivation to make a change. So.
Yeah, those are the kinds of stories that always give me goosebumps. And I think about our various different interviews and interactions that we've had with the students here, and just hearing it recounted, I just get to relive it. That's great.
No, and it's a testament to the work that the two of you, and how many other individuals worked with you guys on this research? Was there two other people? I can't remember.
Yeah. So the first study, it was myself and 4 other students. And then one of those students was continued on with us with the second study. And that's when Devin joined as well.
Right.
And now it's kind of just Devin and I are the core team, and we're doing the longitudinal or the long-term effects of wolf connection as well.
Yeah. So it's multifaceted. I bookmarked this, and I think this is the second study, right, Pepper, that I have in front of me? Yeah. So
but that's actually from the first study.
That's from the first study. Okay. And it plays to what you were just saying, Devin, is that the students they're taking, and Piper said it also, what they're taking with them as they move forward and learning how to establish, friendships and relationships and being able to overcome physical challenges and things of that sort. So when you look at them continuing to grow, is that when you're doing the longitudinal now, what are the aspects you're looking at as they exit the 8-week program and now they're back in, I guess, their lives in the everyday life cycle? Mm-hmm. So what are the factors that you're looking at now? So
we want to make sure that the things that we found in the short term are continuing on, or if they're not, why are they changing? Right. So the self-reflection and insight, the personal growth initiative, and the connectedness to nature. So the self-reflection insight, how are students really reflecting and getting in touch with their emotions and feeling okay with them, which allows them to connect with others and feel comfortable in their own skin. And the personal growth initiative is, how do I set goals and achieve those, and how do I kind of move forward with my life and not remain stagnant? And then the connectedness to nature is this kind of sense of, am I a part of the world around me, or do I feel isolated? And that can be with other people, or that could be literally with nature. And so we want to find out if those things are continuing on after 8 weeks. And so that's kind of the first step. And then we also want to find out, social science, I'm going to pull out my academic hat, but all of the social science theories say that those things then translate into other things like resiliency. And I'm blanking another one, and Devin will know it, but but can you be resilient towards other changes, other aspects in your life that come up, or are you going to have, kind of any bump in the road is going to just set you off? And now I no longer need to follow my goals anymore. Now I no longer can access my emotions and feel less lonely. So that's a resiliency component that is also key to making sure that the students are successful, a year to 5 years from now.
Right. Yeah. Devin, with that in the longitudinal study, what are they? Well, first with this study, was there anything specific you remember them taking from the wolves, or any specific wolves that you remember or recounted or they talked about? And then longitudinally, what do you think the effect of being with wolves and interacting with wolves is going to have an impact on moving forward with them?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. First off, there's the wolf principles, right? That you speak about every time, every day. There's at least one of them that you bring up. And those were life lessons that these students, I don't believe they're going to forget, right? They learned to be in the moment. They learned to ground themselves. In addition to that, every one of those students looked at one of the wolves and saw something in their story. These wolves coming from a different place and growing and being okay despite that. And many of these students, I think in the moment that they came to Wolf Connection, we spoke of sacred timing. Many of them, it seems like that's what they needed in that moment. But I think afterwards, moving on past this, what these students really seem to take is the fact that the wolves don't judge others, and therefore they can connect with others. And also a lot of students talked about I'm blanking on the second thing I was going to say. It was very profound, I promise.
We believe you. It's okay. We know we know you got some radio waves over there, so it's okay. No, but what you said is It's okay. No, and what you said though is great, because I love when I tell these stories on tours, and when I see the effect that some of these kids have just by listening to a story with a certain wolf. It's such a profound, and it's really such a relatable thing that we as humans have done for so long. It's telling stories and telling fables and recognizing our similarities with another being that's not another human. Mm-hmm. That realizing that this wolf has come from, maybe it's the same situation, or maybe this animal feels the same way or had the experiences that I had at the same age, and here we are growing together. So I think in that way, that's one of the things that, yeah, go for it. If you got your thought, go for it.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I think is super powerful about Wolf Connection is there are animal therapies all over the place, right? People working with, horses, wolves, dolphins, otters. And they're cool and they're exciting, and they've shown reductions in anxiety, depression, and so forth. But the cool thing about Wolf Connection is not the fact that you're around wolves, but the fact that those wolves are presented as a whole series of lessons about life, right? And so it's the understanding of the wolves that you as staff have and convey, right? More than just being near a wild animal. And that's why I mentioned the wolf principles. That's why I mentioned the stories of the wolves, because that is what I believe makes Wolf Connection different than swimming in a pool with a bunch of otters, right? Or equine therapy or so forth.
Yeah, it's a relatable. You're right. It's a relatable. It's something that we can equate from this animal that, like you said, it's not horses, and I am not putting horses or dog none of these other therapies. I'm just, when you look at it as with an animal that has been both celebrated and vilified over the course of our existence, and for it to evoke positive change, I think is something powerful. And like you said, to be able to take these principles and put them into practice and notice, with the help of both of you and your colleagues, that it's enacting positive change on individuals that need it and that are able to accept it and then put it back out into the world.
And I also think there's also, one of my favorites is guinea pig therapy, but just think that's
I haven't
funny.
heard about that one, but okay.
No, but I also think another component of that is not just hearing these different stories and taking away life lessons from them, but also being a part of their healing and their growth, and for students to feel like they're of service to this animal just by existing, just by being in their enclosure or near them or walking with them is helpful to another creature that they identify with for some reason. I love that the students come on the first day with, I really like so-and-so, like Maya's my favorite, or Coda's great, or, and I connect with them because of these reasons, and they give very profound reasons for why they connect with certain wolves and wolf dogs, and then they get to see their transformation. I mean, it's so neat. We've been coming up here for a couple years now, and it's great to see the three sisters who were way in the back from the Fox Farm, and now they're just living their best lives and like enclosures with other wolves and wolf dogs, and just kind of like, just being comfortable in their skin. And the students get to see that too, and they get to feel that, oh, I'm a part of a greater experience for them, of like, being able to be comfortable, and they can teach me and I can teach them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Piper and Devin, with everything that we've discussed today, did you find that the study that you have done, that you are doing, and the work that you continue to do, that there's been a successful evaluation of the program and of the students that you guys have talked with and seen?
Good question, John. Honestly, this evaluation was successful if it gets used, right? So I'm going to pass the question back to you. Did you find it useful, and is Wolf Connection using the research we've done?
No, I find it extremely encouraging, and I find it successful too. I think having you, the both of you and your team and your colleagues here, gives it, I think, another boost, because we can, I love telling the positive stories. I'm a positive person, and I see the growth. But I think when it gets put on paper and you see the transformation and it's put in a professional manner in which you two and your colleagues have done, it gives the backbone to it. And I think that's such a huge aspect of this. And that's why I really wanted to have you both on to discuss the findings and discuss the things that you have. I think I think what we're doing, it's an ever evolving process, and that we are constantly trying to change. We're constantly trying to be at the forefront and ahead of it with doing wolf therapy, which is something that is breaking new ground and really changing the way that animal therapy is done. If there's anything you guys want to add to that, and on your end, on the professional aspect of it, in your findings, what do you think? Piper, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think just initially the work that we did, that was identifying the goals of the program and putting them into a language, into the visual graphic that people could understand. The funders could understand, or the general public that really was understand and helping explaining how unique Wolf Connection is, and why Wolf Connection is powerful to the students. So I think that one was a really key aspect to it being used, as Devin said. And then we also showed that statistical evidence, and are continuing to show statistical evidence that the program benefits the youth in those three areas of self-reflection and insight, personal growth initiative, and then their connectedness to nature as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Devin, anything you want to add on Piper's findings there?
Yeah. One of the things that Wolf Connection asks anybody that comes to the ranch to do is reflect and be vulnerable and to share, right? And one of the things that Wolf Connection has allowed us to do through this evaluation is kind of exposed who you are. You've reflected through us on who you are and what you do. You've put it all out there and been very vulnerable, and you've been able to share it with others. And I applaud that. And I think that every organization that does that can grow from it. So that's the big piece I've had to add. Do you notice that anything about Wolf Connection has changed as a result of these studies, or do you find that you've talked to others differently as a result of these studies?
I don't know if I've talked to anyone differently. I think as a program, like I said, we're just an ever-evolving entity in that way. I love that we are able to really adapt to ourselves and say, what are our strengths and weaknesses from really each individual session, and say, how can we make things better? How can we streamline it? How can we get to more teenagers, get to more adults, and use the wolf principles that we have, and the teachings that we have, the wolves that we have, and the wolf dogs that we have, to reach a larger base. And I can't thank your team and you all enough for making that a talking point for us. And we can say, yes, we have done this work, and it's always going to be this work in progress, but it's something that we know is getting traction, and that it's working, and that we have the results to show it. So I always love that piece of it.
Well, it's really interesting that you mentioned that as part of your culture, about kind of continuing to grow and reflect and grow from that reflection. And that's why I think it's such a powerful pairing, a partnership between Wolf Connection and evaluation, kind of that maybe unexpected, that evaluation's like nerdy and academic, and we're collecting data and doing analyses, but then at the same time, like, that's really truly what evaluation is. That's the core of evaluation, is to let's do an honest look at what it is that we're doing, and how can we do those things that we do good better, and how can we improve the things that we're maybe not so good at, or how can we refocus and decide that's not an area that we really do want to focus on, we want to go over here. And that's that's one of the reasons why I think this partnership works really well, and why we're so grateful to be working with you all.
I look forward to having you guys back on when I know the longitudinal study will be ongoing, and these studies are ongoing. But I'd love to hear the progress, and I'd love to know, where this is headed and what are the long-term effects. Because we obviously in these COVID times that we're in, and it seems that hopefully we've done something, or we're doing enough to help those that are out there that are able to, take these principles, take the sacred timing piece, and, find nature, and hopefully sort of find a balance where we're at right now.
Absolutely.
I have one last question for both of you that I do ask all people that are here. And so I'm going to go to Devin first, and then I'll go to you, Piper. So one thing I ask to all of our guests that come on. So Devin, when you hear the word wolf, what comes to mind?
Good question. It's changed. When I was younger, I lived in New England, and I used to go running in the evenings. And there's a lot of wolves near where I grew up, and I used to hear them howl. And it was a sense of adventure and a sense of excitement. But it was also terrifying because I was out running alone, and you hear wolves around me. When I came to Wolf Connection, I think that sense of adventure and excitement stayed, but it transformed into more of a sense of like grounding it in the moment, right? When they were howling, they were howling because of something powerful that happened in their life in that moment. And so the wolves remind me that yesterday already happened, tomorrow is yet to come, but right now is now. And as they live in the moment, they taught me to live in the moment. So that's what wolves mean to me.
That's awesome. Piper, what about you?
Oh gosh. So I grew up in Wyoming actually, and often visited Yellowstone, and have very, very vivid memories of kind of the journey that Yellowstone went through, of the reintroduction of the wolves and the ranching community, opposing that, and kind of this whole transition story, and kind of following along some of those first packs and how they morphed and transitioned, and now they're thriving. And so I think that was kind of my initial feeling of wolves, was this kind of 2,000-foot view of, like they're a part of nature, and isn't that great? And, and just kind of like they're kind of iconic for being, in a sense, wild, just being in nature. And I think now my perception, or I don't know, perception has changed, but my visceral reaction to when I hear the word wolf is more of it's more internal. It hits closer to home. I think of Wolf Connection. I think of the kids that I've seen that have gone through transitions. I think of the transitions that I've gone through being here, and just the intimate moments with them, sitting in their enclosure, and they're running around, or they're right in your face, and everything in between. So I think it's more of a healing feeling now. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Thank you guys so much. I want to give, I got Piper's card. So give us, Piper, if people want to go and check you guys out on what's the website where they can look at some of the evaluations that you're doing, if they can. So
great.
Just promote, what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so we're terrible and we don't have a great website up, and we have a Twitter account, but it's also terrible. So our name is Ascending Edge Creative Evaluation, and we've shortened that. So you can find us, Piper, at edgeeval.com. So there's 3 E's total, edgeeval.com, and Devin at edgeeval.com. We're also technically on Twitter at edgeeval, and the same thing. There's a www at edgeeval.com.
So edgeeval.com.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome. No, and this was extremely awesome for me, because first, it's great to have you both back. We miss you guys. And it's just good to get an insight. So thank you both for bringing your expertise, bringing your heart and your soul to this. You guys are absolutely incredible. And I thank you so much. So come back anytime. Let me know when when we have more things to talk about, and I'm happy to have you guys back on at any point. Hopefully, Devin, we get you in here at the ranch again and not on Zoom.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much, Piper and Devin. Howls to all of you out there. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much.